Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Clay, and I'm the Bucks believer. Giannis Antetokounmpo is my favorite NBA player of all time, and it's not particularly close. He is such a great person, such a bubbly personality, so outgoing and kind to everyone he interacts with, and I just fell in love with that in addition to his excellent play on the court and his unicorn level of individuality and specialness of his game. I just love Giannis, and as a Bucks fan, I've been so privileged to root for him over the past couple seasons. Throughout that time, I've always known that there was a chance that he could have a really serious injury. It's really hard to be that big and to play as hard as Giannis does and to avoid being injured, but so far in his career, he's never really had a serious injury, and I hope that he narrowly avoided one tonight because right now, it really doesn't look so good for Giannis as he came down really hard on his knee during a play in the third quarter of tonight's game against the Atlanta Hawks. He was going up to try to contest an alley-oop dunk from Clint Capella, and he ended up coming down, and it looked like he hyperextended his knee very far, and I don't know, as a Bucks fan, I'm fearing the worst. I read all over the place after the injury that this is a pretty common maneuver when it comes to ACL tears, and I'm really hoping that that's not what this is, but it does sound like there's a chance that that's going to be the case. For Giannis' sake, I really hope it's not because he's just such an incredible person and an incredible player. And of course, it kills the Bucks too, but really, I'm just praying for Giannis right now and hoping he's not seriously injured. I don't even know how I can talk about basketball here because Giannis is just the only thing on my mind, and I hope that he's okay. Yeah, so the Bucks ended up losing this game. It was pretty lopsided. They lost 110 to 88 to a Hawks team that clearly played with a whole lot more energy than Milwaukee did in this one. The Bucks played really poorly in the first half as they struggled to get anything going. Giannis Antetokounmpo was trying to get to the paint as he always does, and Onyeka Okongwu and Clint Capella were both doing an excellent job as individual defenders on him. In addition to that, the Hawks' help defenders were really sagging off of their guys and making sure Giannis wasn't able to get going heading towards the basket. Unfortunately for the Bucks, their shooters really couldn't capitalize on that as throughout the game they really struggled to make three-point shots as they finished this one just 8 for 39 from beyond the arc. In the second half, the Bucks got off to a great start. They cut the Hawks lead down from 16 points to 10 and it looked like they were poised to take a big run and potentially even take the lead. Giannis had just made a great play on both ends of the court as he blocked a potential Clint Capella dunk on defense and then came down and had a monster flush over John Collins. After that, it looked like he had a chance to really get going as he had scored 8 points in just the first 4 minutes of that second half. Then the world came crashing down. Giannis came down on defense and contested that alley-oop and came down so hard. And right away, I knew something was wrong because usually with Giannis, when he goes down, he takes a little time on the ground, but he's clearly waiting for his teammates to help him up. This time, he wasn't waiting. He was on the ground, writhing in pain, grabbing his knee, and it was just such a scary experience. It was great to see him come back to the bench on his own power and walking around, but that's not a great indicator of how healthy he is. Giannis clearly wanted to play, and he's put up with injuries in the past, so he obviously has some very high pain tolerance, and there's a chance that he was just putting up with that with the potential that he could possibly re-enter. That didn't end up happening, and thank God that it didn't, because if this is a serious injury, he only could have made it worse. I also think that him walking out there isn't necessarily indicative of the seriousness of the injury because in Game 6 of the NBA Finals just a couple seasons ago, Klay Thompson tore his ACL and ended up walking out to the free throw line on his own power, sinking 2 free throws, and then walking back to the locker room. Obviously, this isn't the same type of play as Klay had a slightly different way his knee bent when he injured it than what Giannis just had there, but I'm fearing the worst, as I've already said. I'm knocking on wood that Giannis is going to be okay, but as of now, it's really not looking so good for the Greek Freak. I really need to actually talk about basketball here. I just can't help but lament this injury to a guy who's clearly my favorite player. I own 4 Giannis jerseys. Anyways, coming into this game, the biggest storyline was the absence of a different superstar as Hawks point guard Trae Young was out. In his place, Lou Williams got the start, and Sweet Lou was fantastic for Atlanta in this game. The Bucks guarded him in a very similar fashion to which they had guarded Trae Young thus far in the series, as Jrue Holiday was the primary defender. They were going to play drop coverage with Holiday fighting over screens, and Milwaukee wasn't going to bring extra help onto Williams. Lou Will really got it going in the first half, and he made the Bucks pay for not necessarily putting the biggest point of emphasis on contesting his shots. Williams had 21 points and was incredibly efficient in this game, shooting 7 for 9 from the field. He did a terrific job of getting to his pull-up jumper, both in the mid-range, where I don't remember him missing, and from beyond the three-point line, where he was 2 for 3 from beyond the arc. Williams also was able to get to the free throw line by manufacturing some contact from Bucks defenders, and he went 5 for 6 from the line. In addition to his scoring greatness in this one, Williams also did a nice job as a playmaker, dishing out 8 assists. That came in the third and fourth quarters, especially where the Bucks made a bit of an adjustment, bringing Brook Lopez up a bit higher on the pick and roll, which opened up a lob opportunity for both Clint Capella and John Collins on separate occasions. Williams took advantage of those lob ops, and he threw alley-oops to those two guys for some easy flushes. In addition to Williams stepping up his play on offense in Trae's absence, Kevin Huerter also had a higher role in this one as a pick-and-roll ball handler. He finished with 15 points and was a very efficient 6 for 8 on 2-point field goals. That's because he was able to get into the teeth of that Milwaukee drop and knock down some tough mid-range jumpers. He did struggle from beyond the arc, going just 1 for 7 from 3, but that mid-range game was really where Trae was making the Bucks pay when he was healthy, and in this one, Huerter was able to replicate that success. The Red Velvet, as I like to call him with Huerter, that's one of the best nicknames in the NBA in my opinion, also dished out 7 assists, and similar to Williams, did a great job of looking for open big men under the basket. Jrue Holiday on the other end of the court for the Bucks was not able to have the same level of success, and neither was Chris Middleton. The starting backcourt for the Hawks in Williams and Huerter greatly outplayed the starting backcourt for the Bucks in Holiday and Middleton, and considering that Chris and Jrue are both considered better players than Huerter and Williams, that was definitely a disappointment, especially when the Bucks needed those two guys to step up their play after Giannis' injury. Each of them made some tough shots following Antetokounmpo going down, but they both were largely inefficient, and they both tried to play some hero ball down the stretch. Holiday finished with 19 points, but it took him 17 shots to get there, as he was just 6 for 17 from the field. He did dish out 9 assists in this game, and once again did a nice job on the driving kick, but he did struggle with some turnover issues as well, having 4 of those. Middleton also had a solid game as a scorer, as he was able to work his way up to 16 points, but once again it came with very poor efficiency, as Chris was just 6 for 17 from the field. That included an 0 for 7 performance from beyond the three-point arc, which was really disappointing after Chris's great Game 3. Those two guys really needed to do more for the Bucks, and the way that they played just wasn't going to allow them to do so, as they made it very difficult on themselves to get it going because of the hero ball they played. If they instead would have run through the offense and tried to generate more natural looks instead of constantly attacking in isolation, they may have been able to get going a little bit better than they did in reality, and that especially would have helped Middleton, who got most of his shots in his big fourth quarter of Game 3 through the flow of the offense. In addition to their stars struggling in Giannis' absence, the Bucks also didn't get much help from their supporting cast, and that was the exact opposite of what the Hawks got from their supporting cast, as they had multiple players step up and had huge performances. The first of those was Cam Reddish. Reddish was only playing in his second game of the playoffs, and he had some huge minutes for the Hawks off the bench in this one. He finished with 12 points while shooting 5 for 9 from the field. He made 2 of his three-pointers as well, and that was great to see for Hawks fans when it comes to Reddish, because he's largely struggled to shoot the ball well from beyond the three-point arc throughout his time in the NBA. He made the Bucks pay with some difficult contested threes in this one, and that was very frustrating as a Bucks fan, because I know of Reddish's struggles, so some shots are just going to go in sometimes, and tonight was one of those nights for the Hawks. Cam also played really good defense on Chris Middleton on the other end of the court, and it felt like whenever Chris started to get it going a little bit, Coach Nate McMillan would sub in Reddish and make sure that Middleton wasn't really able to get on fire for the Bucks. In addition to Reddish having a huge contributions in this one for the Hawks. They also got a huge game from another member of their supporting cast in Bogdan Bogdanovic. Bogdanovic has really struggled recently in these playoffs as he has been dealing with some knee soreness, but tonight he did not show that shooting the basketball as he poured in 20 points for the Hawks while making 6 of his 14 attempts from the three-point line. This was clearly the best game of the series for Bogey, and his contributions were huge for Atlanta in their route to getting this 110-88 victory. Like I said before, Atlanta got those contributions from their role players. The Bucks did not have any role players to be seen stepping up in this one. PJ Tucker had 8 points in the first quarter, but did not score again the rest of the game. As a matter of fact, no one outside the Bucks' big three scored in double digits in this one. If Giannis is out, someone needs to step up. The two guys I'm really looking at in this area are Bryn Forbes and Bobby Portis. Those two guys have given the Bucks some big minutes off the bench this year, and their biggest contribution, both of them, is as a scorer. Milwaukee needs those guys to fill in on Antetokounmpo's shoes if he's injured, because Chris and Drew cannot be expected to do it all, and Lopez and Tucker are out there more for their defense, as well as Pat Connaughton. Forbes and Portis are going to have to score some points, and we've seen good moments from each of those two in the playoffs so far. Hopefully we get a few more of those good moments as this series goes on. Finally, I want to wrap this up by talking about Coach Mike Budenholzer playing his starters for most of the fourth quarter. I think that there was a lot of outrage from Bucks fans on this, especially on Twitter, where they were questioning why Bud wouldn't just take his starters out, considering this game was lost pretty early on in the fourth. However, I do think that I kind of understand Bud's reasoning, as in the NBA, it's a usual trend that the winning coach in a blowout will not take his starters out until the losing coach does so. Bud may have been keeping his best guys out there in order to continue to tire out the Hawks' best players in anticipation of what's likely to be a long series with each of the best players on these two teams being out. Bud simply could have been trying to tire out those Hawks starters further. I don't know if that's the right decision, because the Bucks are going to be incredibly reliant on their starters as well for the rest of this series, particularly Middleton and Holiday, so it remains to be seen if that was the right choice. All I'm saying is that I kind of understand what Bud was getting at, and it makes some sense to me. Really, the big takeaway from this game is one of sadness. Giannis' injury is heartbreaking for me as a Bucks fan, and an even bigger heartbreak for me as a Giannis fan. Like I said, he's my favorite player in the league. He's my favorite player of all time, and to see him go down like that was just catastrophic. I really hope that he gets better soon, and yeah, I don't have too much more to say on this one. Please let me know what you thought of this one in the comments, and be sure to say some prayers for Giannis, because, man, I just hope he feels better. Be sure to, I'm not even going to ask for likes and subscriptions. I'm just going to wrap it up. I'll see you all again very